Axis. An axis is a line about which movement takes place. Plane. A plane is a surface which lies at a right angle to the axis and in which movement takes place. A sagittal axis lies in an anterior-posterior direction. A frontal or coronal axis lies in a side-to-side direction. Vertical or longitudinal axis lies parallel to the line of gravity. Sagittal plane divides body into right and left. Frontal plane divides body into front and back. Transverse plane divides body into equal upper and lower half. Movement takes place in sagittal axis and frontal plane are abduction and adduction. Movement takes place in frontal axis and sagittal plane are flexion and extension. Movement takes place in vertical axis and transverse plane are rotational movement. Lever. It is a rigid bar which is capable of movement about a fixed point called fulcrum. Representation. Lever is represented as bone. Fulcrum is represented as joints. Efforts is represented as muscle. Weight is represented as a body part. Types, orders or the classification of lever. First order lever. Fulcrum is between the weight and effort. Perpendicular distance between the fulcrum and weight is known as weight arm. Perpendicular distance between fulcrum and effort is known as effort arm. No any mechanical advantage or disadvantage. Anatomical example is nodding movement. Mechanical example is seesaw. First order lever is also known as lever of stability. In the anatomical example, effort is represented by neck muscles, fulcrum is represented by occipital joint, weight is represented by face, and lever is represented as a skull. Second order lever. Weight is between the fulcrum and effort. Anatomical example is standing on toes. Mechanical example is nut cutter. Second order lever is also known as lever of strength and power. Mechanical advantage is greater than 1. In this example, weight is represented by body parts. Effort is represented by calf muscles. Fulcrum is represented by metatarsophalangeal joint. Third order lever. Effort is between the fulcrum and weight. Mechanical disadvantage. Anatomical example is elbow joint. Mechanical example is forceps, fish rope. Third order lever is known as lever of velocity. In this example, effort is brachialis muscle. Fulcrum is elbow joint. Weight is body or the object in the hand. Lever is the forearm. Mechanical advantage is the ratio of weight to effort. Uses of lever. Lever is used in physiotherapy to make movement easier. This is the goniometer. It is used to measure the joint range. This is the pegboard. It is used to improve coordination. Finger exercise spring. It is used especially for the opponent muscles of the thumb and for the individual or group exercise of a finger. This is a finger exercise ring. It is used for the flexion exercise of all the fingers and the development of the forearm muscles and the paraplegic rehabilitation. This is finger gripper. It is used for the finger strengthening. This is hand, wrist and forearm exercise table. It is especially designed for the exercise of the intrinsic muscles of the hand, wrist and forearm with or without resistance, especially used for metacarpophalangeal and interphalangeal joints. This is fingerboard used for the finger exercise. This is a wrist roller used for the flexion and extension of the wrist. Supination pronation dumbbell. It is used to develop the muscle power and to control the fine movement of supination and pronation. Adjustable shoulder wheel wall mounted. It is used for the shoulder rotation and circumduction. Finger ladder or the shoulder abduction ladder. It has the 40 steps and it is used for the shoulder abduction and flexion. This is chrome plated dumbbells. It is used for the strengthening of the muscles and also used to give the resistance exercise. Dumbbell storage rack. It is used for the strengthening of the muscles of the upper extremity. Quadriceps exercise board, bench or table. It is used for the strengthening of the quadriceps muscle. This is the stationary bicycle. It is used for the strengthening of the hip and leg muscles. It is also used for the rehabilitation purpose after the orthopedic surgery and injury. Quadriceps wooden board. It consists of a thick wood and it also can be set at a various angle. It is used to treat knee injury and the fracture of the humerus. Drawing machine with sliding sheet. It consists of the padded seat and 4 big nylon casters and slides smoothly over the frame. It is used for the strengthening of the leg muscles. Ankle exercise. It is used for the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion of the ankle. The boots has the straps to hold the foot. Resistance can be increased further by tightening the spring nuts with a spanner. Inversion eversion exercise. It is used for the inversion and eversion of the foot and it is secured with the help of the straps. Balance board or a tilt board. It is used for the balance exercise. TheraBand. It is used to give exercise to the upper and lower extremity. It can also used to give resistance. Wall bar unit. It is used for the rehabilitation purpose. It is made up from wood. Parallel bar. It is used for the gait training. Exercise staircase corner type. This staircase is designed to fit into the corner of a department to save the valuable space and it is used for the training of the stair climbing. Supination frame and accessories. It is used to provide facility to hang in a supination frame with accessories for giving exercise. Slanted walking board. It is an adjustable board used for the patient who have difficulty in walking. Foot placement ladder is useful for early walking balance training. Vestibular balls. It is used for the strengthening of the joints, spinal mobility, cardiovascular fitness, improved balance equilibrium, control vestibular system and proper weight shifting. Hammer. It is used to check the tendon reflex. Shoulder pulley. It is used for the shoulder flexion and abduction. Standing frame. It is used for the pediatric patient, especially for those who does not have independent standing. Blaster. It is used for the rehabilitation program and can be used to improve the neck control and for the pediatric patient to give the weight bearing. Cerebral palsy chair. It is used especially for the children to give the support to the head and neck. Incentive spirometer. It is used for the breathing exercise. BP machine. It is used to check the blood pressure. Passive movements. These movements are produced by an external force during muscular inactivity. Classification. Passive movements are classified into two types. Relaxed passive movement including accessory movements and passive manual mobilization technique. Relaxed passive movements. These are the movement performed accurately and smoothly by physiotherapists. A knowledge of anatomy of joint is required. These movements are performed in the same range and direction as in active movement. Accessory movements. This occur as a part of any normal joint movement but can be limited or absent in abnormal joint condition. This consists of gliding and rotational movement which cannot be performed in isolation as voluntarily movement but can be isolated by physiotherapist. Passive manual mobilization technique. Mobilization of joint. These are usually small repetitive rhythmical or functional movement performed by physiotherapists in available range and under patient's control. Manipulation of joint is performed by physiotherapist, surgeon or physician under the effect of anesthesia. Principles of giving relaxed passive movement. Relaxation. A brief explanation of what is going to happen to the patient, then is taught to relax voluntarily except in case of flaccid paralysis when this is unnecessary. Inspire confidence and cooperation in the maintaining relaxation throughout the movement. Fixation. Where the movement is to be limited to the specific joint, the bone lies proximal to it. It is fixed by physiotherapist to ensure the movement of that particular joint only. Support. Full and comfortable support is given to the part to be moved so that the patient remain relaxed and confident. The physiotherapist grasp should be comfortably in her hand or it may be supported by axial suspension slings. Traction. Many joints allows the articular surface to be drawn apart by traction, means to pull. Mostly long bones allows the traction. Range. The range of movement should be as full as in active movement and in existing range without pain. For example, the quadriceps are fully extended when the hip joint is extended and the knee joint is flexed. Speed and duration. The speed must be uniform, fairly slow and rhythmical. Effects and uses of the relaxed passive movement. Adhesion formation is prevented and the present free range of movement is maintained. One passive movement will be given at frequent intervals twice daily. When active movement is impossible because of the muscular inactivity, this movement may help to prevent memory of the movement patterns by stimulating kinesthetic receptors. When full range of active movement is impossible, the extensibility of the muscle is maintained and the adaptive shortening is prevented. The venous and lymphatic return is associated by thickening the walls of the vessels. The continuous passive movement can induce smoothing effect and induced further relaxation and sleep. There are two types of method by which we can measure limb length discrepancy: true or segmental discrepancy, apparent discrepancy. True limb length discrepancy. It is used in clinic for the diagnosis purpose. The true shortening or true length is the length of limb after removing compensatory mechanism. True shortening example is congenital maldevelopment and anatomical structure. Apparent length. It is also known as functional shortening or functional limb length discrepancy. Apparent length is the length of the limb with the compensatory mechanism. For example, unilateral foot pronation and pseudoscoliosis. Limb length measurement for upper limb. If the difference is less than 1 inch, then it is considered as normal, but if difference goes more than 1.5 inch, it is considered as abnormal and needs proper corrective treatment. Causes of limb length discrepancy: congenital deficiency of limb, congenital shortening, malunited fracture, supracondylar, cubitus valgus, cubitus varus. Measurement. Apparent measurement. It is not of much significance in upper limbs, but it should be given in order to gain some idea. Method: keep the upper limb parallel to each other. Measurement is taken from C7 to the tip of the ulnar styloid process. Here you can see in this picture, the measurement is taken from C7 to the ulnar styloid process. True measurement method: keep the limb in identical position. Measurement is taken from the angle of the acromion to the tip of the radial styloid process. Here in the picture you can see the measurement is taken from the acromion process to the radial styloid process. Segmental measurement. It is the most acceptable method because by this method we can come to know whether there is a deformity in arm or forearm. Arm. It is measured from the angle of the acromion process to the lateral condylar tip. Forearm. From the lateral epicondylar tip to the tip of the radial styloid process. In this picture you can see the measurement is taken in the segment from the acromion process to the lateral condyle, from the lateral condyle to the radial styloid process. Elbow joint method: the distance between the lateral epicondyle of the humerus to the tip of the olecranon process. If the distance is reduced, it suggests posterolateral dislocation. The distance between the medial epicondyle of the humerus to the tip of the olecranon process. If the distance is reduced, it suggests the posteromedial dislocation. Here you can see in this picture, the elbow joint measurement is taken from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus to the olecranon process. In the medial side, the measurement is taken from the medial epicondyle of the humerus to the olecranon process. Limb length discrepancy for the lower limb. If there is discrepancy less than 1 inch, then it is considered as normal. But if difference goes more than 1.5 inch, it is considered as abnormal and needs proper corrective treatment. Causes of the limb length discrepancy: congenital shortening of the femur, congenital shortening of the tibia, trauma, polymyelitis, pelvic tilt, scoliosis, bony abnormalities such as coxa vara, coxa valga, genu varus, genu valgum. Measurement. Apparent measurement: apparent shortening or functional shortening of the leg is the result of the adaptation the patient has made in response to pathology somewhere in the spine, pelvic or lower rib. Method: ask the patient to lie in supine. Both the lower limbs should be parallel to each other. Measurement is taken from the tip of the xiphisternum or umbilicus to the medial malleolus. Here you can see in this picture, The measurement is taken from the umbilicus to the medial malleolus. Here you can see the measurement is taken from the xiphis sternum to the medial malleolus. True measurement. The patient position is supine lying. The legs are kept parallel to each other 15 to 20 cm apart. The lower limb must be placed in identical position relative to the pelvis because abduction of the hip brings the medial malleolus closer to the anterior superior iliac spine on the same side. Abduction of the hip takes the medial malleolus away from the anterior superior iliac spine on the same side. Method. The measurement is taken from the anterior superior iliac spine to the medial or lateral malleolus of the patient. In this picture, you can see the measurement is taken from the anterior superior iliac spine to the medial malleolus. Segmental measurement used to know correct area of the leg discrepancy from anterior superior iliac spine to the greater trochanter, from greater trochanter to lateral knee joint, and from lateral knee joint to the medial knee joint, from medial knee joint to the medial malleolus. This is the correct method and used to know whether there is coxa vulga, coxa vara, shortening of the femur or the shortening of the tibia. In this picture, you can see the measurement is taken from the anterior superior iliac spine to the lateral knee joint, from lateral knee joint to the medial knee joint, from medial knee joint to the medial malleolus. Mobility aids are the assistive devices which helps the individual to share the weight and helps the patient to walk independently. Definition: the devices which are useful for the mobility as well as stability purpose of an individual who can't walk independently without support is called as mobility aids or walking aids. Uses of mobility aids or walking aids: these devices are mostly prescribed when there is a muscular pain, muscular weakness, problem in balancing, fracture, joint diseases, injuries or inflammation in limbs, lack of proprioception. In simple view, mobility aids are useful for muscles, musculoskeleton and neuromuscular problems. Types of walking aids: there are major 6 varieties of walking aids: crutches, canes or sticks, walkers, wheelchairs, braces or splints, prosthesis. Selection of proper device: the correct selection of a device differ from patient to patient and depends upon the following factors: strength of the patient's upper and lower limbs, degree of coordination of movement of the upper and lower limbs, stability of the patient, degree of relief from weight bearing as patient required. Crutches. Crutches are mostly used to relieve the weight bearing in the one or both the lower extremity and provides additional support to the patient. Crutches are typically used bilaterally. Functions of the crutches: to increase the base of support, to improve the lateral stability, to allow the upper extremity to transfer body weight to the floor. Types of crutches: axillary or underarm crutch, elbow or forearm crutch, gutter crutch. Axillary crutches: these devices are also known as regular or standard crutch. It is made up of aluminium, steel and sometimes by the wood. Axillary crutch provide maximum stability and support to the patient than any other crutches. It gives us more than 80% of the stability. They consist of an axillary pads or bar, a handpiece and a rubber ferrule which has a diameter of 1.5 to 3 inches. Parts of the axillary crutches: axillary pad: it is situated at the top portion of the crutch. It should be placed 5 cm below the axilla. If not, the axillary pad compresses the axilla, causing the neuropraxia of the axillary nerve, radial nerve or brachial plexus. Normally, the axillary pad is made up of metal and it is covered by cushion material to avoid damage to the lateral aspect of the chest wall. The axillary pad is placed in the lateral wall of the chest to provide the lateral stability. Hand grip: it is made up of plastic material and sometimes covered by the cushion material. Hand grip normally comes around the greater trochanter area of the person using it. It has the adjustable clips or screws to adjust the height. Rubber ferrule: it is situated in the lower end of the crutch. This rubber tip provides more grip for the patient while walking in the normal or slippery surface. Advantages of the axillary crutches: they improve balance and lateral stability. They provide functional ambulation with restricted weight bearing. They are easily adjustable, inexpensive if made up of wood. They can be used for stair climbing. Disadvantages of the auxiliary crutches. Base of support is not wider, so it could not be used in the crowded areas. If the patient has the habit to lean to the auxiliary bar, then it will damage the axillary nerve, radial nerve or brachial plexus. Auxiliary crutch measurement. Before giving crutches to the patient, the length should be perfectly measured. Otherwise, it will cause neuropraxia, means nerve injury. Sometimes, if it is small, the patient gait pattern may change or it may cause some other complications like back pain. Measurement. Shoe off, lying and standing position. Shoe on, lying and standing position. This is the lying position and this is the standing position. In both the way, we can take the measurement. Shoe off, supine lying position. While patient is in barefoot, the measurement is taken from the apex of the axilla to the medial malleolus. It is the accurate method to measure the crutch length. In this picture, you can see the measurement is taken from the apex of the axilla to the medial malleolus. Standing position, 2 inches below the axilla to the 2 inches lateral and 6 inches anterior to the foot when the patient is in standing position. Shoes on, supine lying position. This type of measurement is taken while patient is wearing shoes. The measurement is taken from 5 cm below the apex of the axilla to the 20 cm lateral to the heel of the shoe. It is not accurate method of measuring the crutch length. Shoe on, standing position. The measurement is taken from 5 cm down to the apex of the axilla to the point 20 cm lateral to the heel of the shoe. Hand grip measurement. The measurement is taken from 5 cm below the apex of the axilla to the ulnar stylet process when the elbow is 20 to 30 degree flexed position. Weight transmission. Elbow is extended and weight is transmitted to the handpiece so that the pressure over the axilla is reduced. Elbow crutch is also known as loft strand and Canadian crutch. It is made up of aluminium or steel and sometimes by steel metal. It gives less stability than auxiliary crutch. These crutches are particularly suitable for the patient with good balance and strong arm. It provides 60% of the stability of the patient using it. So the elbow crutch are recommended for the patient having minimal instability in walking. Parts of the elbow crutch. Forearm cuff. The forearm cuff is made up of metal and it is coated by plastic or cushion material. Forearm cuff is placed just below the elbow joint. Single upright. It has a proximal adjustable press clip and distal adjustable press clips. The proximal press clip adjusts the height of the forearm cuff and the distal press clip helps to adjust the height of the crutch. Handpiece. Handpiece is placed between the proximal and distal adjustable press clip. The handpiece comes around the greater trochanter region of person using it. Rubber ferrule. It provides more grip for the patient while walking. Advantages of the elbow crutch. It can be used in stair climbing, easily adjustable. They are more cosmetic and can fit easily into the automobile because of its overall decreased height. Disadvantage of elbow crutch. These are more costly than wooden auxiliary crutch. This crutch provides less lateral support due to the absence of an auxiliary bar. The forearm cuff may be difficult to remove. Elbow crutch measurement. Shoe on, lying position. The measurement is taken in lying position with shoes on. The elbow is slightly flexed approximately 15 degree and the measurement is taken from ulnar stylet process to a point 20 cm lateral to the heel of the shoe. Once the patient is standing with this support, the length must be checked. Shoe off, standing position. The measurement is taken in standing position with elbow 20 to 30 degree flexed and the distal end of the crutch is pointed 2 inches lateral and 6 inches anterior to the foot. The forearm cuff is approximately 1 to 1.5 inches below the elbow. Weight transmission. Same as auxiliary crutches, the weight is transmitted to the handpiece when the elbow extends. Gutter crutch is a variety of a stick, but in this the weight is borne along the length of the forearm rather than through the wrist or hand, also called as adjustable arthritic crutch or forearm crutch. This is made up of metal. They consist of padded forearm support, straps, adjustable handpiece and a rubber ferrule. These are used for the patient with rheumatoid arthritis who cannot take weight through hand, wrist and elbow because of the deformity and pain. Parts of the gutter crutch. Forearm support. Forearm is supported by straps with a short horizontal metal gutter. Rest with the elbow in 90 degree of flexion. Hand grip. An adjustable bar carrying a vertical hand grip projects forward from the gutter. Rubber ferrule. The lower end of the crutch is protected by rubber tip. Indication for use of the gutter crutch. Unilateral or bilateral weakness of the lower limbs and upper limbs are unable to bear the weight through the wrist and the hand. For example, patient with rheumatoid arthritis. Fixed flexion deformities of the elbow joint. Weakness of the muscle of the elbow joint and hand. A deformity of hand causing difficulty in gripping. When the patient experiencing pain in the hand or wrist on taking weight through the upper limb. When the patient finds weight bearing through the wrist and hand impossible because of the injury to the both the upper and the lower limbs. Gutter crutch measurement. Shoe on. Lying and standing position. In lying position, the measurement is taken from the point of the flexed elbow to the 20 cm lateral to the heel, from olecranon process to the bottom of the heel. In standing position, the patient is asked to stand upright with his arm and shoulder flexed, looking forward, and his weight should be evenly distributed on both the feet. The measurement is taken from the olecranon process to the floor, from elbow to the floor. Crutch maintenance. The wood or metal should not be broken or damaged. All the adjustable nuts should be tight. The rubber tip must be in good condition, and if not, it should be replaced. The hand grip and the auxiliary pad must be in good condition and should be properly padded.